I'm kind of going through this quick. I get a little nervous in front of the camera.
No, you're doing good.
Well,
It's
I
a
hope
good
I'm making
rundown,
sense.
and it's very consistent with what I've seen too. In
Right.
we even had I've had a couple of meetings with the Archdiocese in Chicago with
Mm-hmm.
survivors, and the first thing they would do with their victims assistance coordinator or whatever, first thing they would do is full disclosure. We want to let you know that we do have a contract out with a private investigating firm. And so they hand in the brochure and say, well, the assumption is the private investigator is going to be investigating into the accused perpetrators.
Right.
But what we realize is they were investigating the accusers, the survivors.
And
So
looking
they
for
have
some
a
dirt.
whole, and I'm like, if the Catholic parishioners who give money in the basket only know
Right.
that where their money is going to hire a
Oh,
private
yeah.
investigator, and they would go, I have a friend, they went to her preschool. They asked for her preschool transcripts. One guy, they went
Wow.
his girlfriend's work to his work, his apartment comp manager, and it's intimidation. It's
Oh,
Chicago.
absolutely.
It's intimidation, but also they're trying to find anything they can. A divorce, you know, a spouse
Right.
maybe who is going to say something negative, to anything to discredit. So that was
Exactly.
real important what you said, the rundown, because now we're looking at when a survivor is ready to, when the nightmares and flashbacks, and you're
Right.
ready to come forward, this is what you're up against. It seems to be pretty typical,
Exactly.
unfortunately. And I just don't know what, like, how could, you know, if I could just share real fast, I'm thinking while
Sure.
you were talking, I had that reaction at first. When I was in college, I started
Mhm.
hearing about in the 80s, pedophile priests and stuff. And my natural, well, I'm sure the bishop didn't know about it. I'm sure they got rid of him. Well, it's the complete opposite of what was really
Right.
happening. And so what opened my eyes to accept what was going on and to identify with the survivors instead of the priests. And you know what it was, Jim, was meeting survivors
Oh,
and
okay.
hearing, not and not reading a newspaper article about John Doe or Jane Doe and a lawsuit and this is what happened or whatever, but actually meeting the men and women who were saying this.
Okay.
And then it's just like totally, I'm like, wow. So, and it's been hard, but it's been a gift. It's been a gift. It's just like
Right.
the most courageous, kind people I've ever met. So when we try to think of how we can break through that, so people open their eyes, open their hearts, and don't shut down and don't turn off. And I
Right.
think that this kind of thing can help because people can see you, hear your story in your own words, and then
Right.
the others too. That hopefully that'll help chip away that barrier that people put up.
I hope so. I
Yeah,
was a lot more eloquent in my imagination, but
You're very eloquent, Jim.
you are. You
that's
are. You're
good.
impressively elegant,
Yes.
Okay.
eloquent.
I'm glad. I really don't know while I'm talking. It's like I'm dissociating while I'm yakking away, and then I come back to myself and go, "What the hell did I just do?"
No, you're doing.
You have it all in you.
You
It's
do.
all in
Okay.
you, right? So
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
That's good.
See, survivors have the key. You know, if we want to know a key to how to stop this, how to deal with it, how to recover from it, as this comes out, even the people like Lisa and I did not go through the same kind of trauma, but we share it. So
Right.
anybody who's exposed to this in any kind of way needs to have some kind of healing or some kind of ways to because it's that harsh. So, but that's
Right.
doable. Like that's doable. I think it's more important that Nobody should have to suffer this and nobody should have to carry the burden.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and that's why I hope by demystifying it, that it won't seem as weird, and then people won't, denial is really a mild form of dissociation.
Yeah.
But as soon as people stop identifying with the victim or the reporter, then that's kind of the end of the dialogue. So
Yeah.
that's the big thing, is how do you get people to listen to the, and maybe not, I know a lot of guys, nobody wants to, the guys in the world I come from, they don't want to identify with the one who got beat up. I think that's a lost cause to try and get them to do that. There must be, so I'd rather get them into their hero thing. Well, you want to go rescue these kids. You don't have to identify with me. Look at me, I'm stammering and I'm a mess. But there's little kids out there getting hurt. Why don't you put on your William Wallace pants and go out and do some heroic shit with these kids? And I think that might be a better way to approach it for a lot of people.
I agree. We were all kids, and
Right.
that's why I think when SNAP does their an event, they'll hold up the pictures of themselves at the age that they were abused. Even though we're all adults now, adults weren't abused. Adults are abused, but back then, you were 3, you were 6 years old.
Right.
So you weren't the same person that you are now standing there. So if the more we can help people understand that to identify with the children,
Right.
who were children at the time or who are children now. And
Right. Everyone's been a child.
Hey,
that should be a
Jim,
no-brainer.
that makes me think, Jim, do you have a picture of you at the ages, like 3, 6? I know then it happened like every year. Do you have at least a few pictures?
I'll try and find a lot of them. I used in therapy, and there's stuff written on them that's kind of,
All right, well, if you can, if
a
you
little
have,
embarrassing.
right.
And that
I
was
wouldn't
one
do
of the
that,
things I did, was I talked to those pictures a lot. Like a
All right.
picture of me when I was 3, and I explained to him over and over, this is what these people did. They weren't really devils. They had masks on, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. The therapy I went through for so many years, it's so complicated. But I'll try. Let me write that down, because I'll forget.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, we may be able to, post that somewhere.
All
Because
right.
that's a SNAP thing too. And that makes sense. People can look at that face, that little 3-year-old face, and,
Right.
really, really feel strongly
Right.
about something.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. The question I'd like to address would be, you bring up how to help the children today. And what if you look at all the illegals that are coming, all those children?
Oh my God. A lot of trafficking going on there.
Yeah, it's frightening.
And crimes.
Take that number alone and then put with the statistics of what you were just saying, Jim, of how many pedophiles there are out there.
All right.
And then I don't know what the statistics of, the abuser usually has multiple people they abuse.
Right.
That might be a way people might start looking, or, seeing it differently than the way of what we try to tell on our story, like we're saying. Because, when you bring those facts up, that's a very good point. There's so many of them out there, and they multiply abuse, and it's nothing
Right.
to stop them from doing what they have in the past. It's still going on. And
Oh,
people
absolutely.
don't realize it.
Yep. And I think the ritualized stuff is, it's just a little more organized, that's all. I mean, it's older. I think it really is part of because the Catholic Church is basically the Holy Roman Empire that morphed into what it is now. It's been going on for a long time. But I think if you're one of those types of people, they find each other and they get pulled in, and, they end up getting involved in this stuff. So yeah, the estimates are at least 1 million men of sexual age in America that are pedophiles. That's a lot of men.
It
And
is.
about, whatever, 10,000 women, whatever.
I think also,
Nobody knows for sure. It'd be anywhere from 500,000 to, 3 million. I don't know.
right. Also, I think, in these recent times with the advent of the internet, I mean, now you're getting these sick, twisted people that can connect, and they can connect,
Yes.
and I mean, we learned that years ago with that man boy love organization, right after the pedophiles, or after the the Boston Globe stuff, and when that story came out in 2002. All of a sudden we're learning about the man boy law. I mean, it's like just stuff like that. And there were those priests, many of those priests were on that. I mean, that's where they were, tracking them down. So I think there's a
Right.
whole lot more now with the dark web, and ways that you can
Oh, God.
incognito,
Yeah.
where you can hide where you've been and stuff. I mean, it's beyond belief what's out there, and it's probably bigger. The numbers may even be bigger than what you're saying, possibly, but I
It's
don't
very, yeah, who knows?
Who
I
knows?
don't know. The research I did, there's no good numbers for that. But like
Right.
how many people are psychopaths in general?
Right.
Somewhere around 5%.
Wow.
And that's what I find. People who lead a double life,
Yeah.
whether they're pedophiles or they're psychopaths who steal, whatever, these kind of people find each other. And a lot of
Yeah.
these organizations are full of these folks.
Right.
And they help each other, they form
Right.
alliances,
Right.
and that's a pretty big union,
Yep. Indeed.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think the Catholic Church, well, they've been organized all along.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they were always connected, but we weren't, because
Right.
we didn't have the internet. So the positive part of the internet, I know
Right.
a lot of, is that the survivors and the truth seekers and stuff were able to connect with one another,
Yes. Right.
share stories. Hey, that happened to me, or whatever. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it kind of leveled the playing field in my eyes, that because with the religious orders, they could just transfer, and even with the diocese, they could just transfer. So if some heat gets on one perpetrator, priest or nun, they could just transfer them to a different city or out of
All
state,
right.
out of the
That was-
country. They
that's
had
so
a
cool.
network already.
Yeah. That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's, again, I just keep thinking of what you're up against, because so many people associate that with God. How do you tell them that God's raping a little kid? I mean, it's not what's happening, but that's how the association works in the
But Jim,
nervous system. So you got to keep plugging away.
I think that though, with the Boston Globe, with the spotlights, that movie,
Right.
with the grand jury report. I mean, I think there's been an awakening, and I don't know how great. I don't know yet, but and I'm sure there's still the deniers. People just did, or
Right.
keep their head in the sand. But more and more people have been exposed to that, and they're like, it's not so. It used to, at first it was like, yeah, it can't be happening. Don't believe it. It's not, I don't think many people can really say, I don't believe it. Now, what you're talking about.
Well, that's good to know, right?
I think so. I mean, I think so. We're moving along slowly, but we're moving along, and who knows what will come next. But this might be, be what's next, and we'll see.
What we ran into was pretty bad, but it kind of makes sense. Well, the Catholic teaching is it's all around the Eucharist, right? Or the Mass, or the sacraments.
Right.
And that it's the body of Christ and the blood of Christ, and gives you grace. And Jesus said, sorry, you guys, I'm not an expert in the Bible, but you only get to the Father through me. Like, you only get to heaven through me. So that, I think, is someone who was raised Catholic, that you need the priest in order to get to heaven.
Well, exactly.
cannot
I
have
was gonna say,
salvation
did he
without
really
the
say that, or did they add that after he died?
No, yeah, absolutely. He said the opposite. So he said, be like a child, right? He said, be like a child. And if you do this to a child. But we had parishioners here in town who they were disturbed, I think disturbed. They wouldn't say it too much about about this kind of issue,
Mm-hmm.
However, they were saying, but he's a priest. So in their minds, they're like, oh, sorry, Father's doing that. Sorry, Father does that, but we need Father. I need Father to get to heaven. I cannot get to heaven
Wow.
unless we have the priest. And they called
Right.
us clergy killers. So we were
Oh, you what?
clergy killers.
Oh my God. You
So
gotta
we
be,
were killing the entire clergy by calling out the ones who were raping little kids.
right.
Wow.
And because we were clergy killers, we were, they call my husband son of Satan's right hand man.
No, well, there
So-
you go. Not outrageous.
No, it's, well, that is, I don't know what the professional diagnosis might be, but that's really far beyond the pale. And this was, to be honest, this happened about 17 years ago, almost 20 years ago. But but it opened my eyes that there are people who will, I mean, basically they were saying we can put up with that as long as we can have our sacraments, as long we need our
Right.
priests to get to heaven. So like you said,
Wow.
they use the religion. It's all the BS religious doctrine or dogma or whatever they make up
Mm-hmm.
so that they get away with it. So that they have church ladies provide cover for them, even
Oh,
though
absolutely.
the church ladies are pretty much admitting that they're not denying that there's no crime.
Wow.
So I think we've come a long way in the 20, but that's why when people
Okay.
ask me like, it happens everywhere. It happens in the Boy Scouts. It happens in
Right.
schools and stuff. The
Military.
Catholic Church is a different element to it
Yeah.
because of the 1600-year doctrine or whatever along the way,
Right.
stuff that they made up.
Well, they've got it down pat too. The first riot against the Catholic Church for raping kids was in 500 AD. And I can't remember the name of the town now. It was some little town in Italy, and they burned the church down and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it really wasn't, it was still kind of the Holy Roman Empire. You know, it hadn't morphed over yet. But, well, you know, the Roman Empire, I mean, they became so decadent.
Yeah.
In fact, that always happens. Ruling classes become more and more decadent through time. That's why empires fall.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it's been going on a long time, very long time.
I think they use the architecture as a visual, I don't like so people, so it demands respect and power. It's like a symbol of respect and power.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Cathedrals
just
are
buildings.
gorgeous.
It's just buildings, and they steal the
Right.
money. And then also remember the Hollywood movies with Bing Crosby and stuff. They have the priests, Father O'Malley and Father Flanagan or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
and they always make them to be. They portray, and I think the Catholic Church may have had a hand in that, as far as the propaganda.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when our new liberal Pope first became Pope, when Benedict was finally kicked out. And I really think that snap had a lot to do with him resigning. I think Barbara Blaine was right in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Time magazine, and they had a picture of the Pope. And by the way, the things this Pope says, I love. You know, the words that come out of his mouth, all the platitudes are great. I believe all that liberal stuff. We don't need to make war. We should feed the hungry and all that. But anyway, there's the Pope. I forget what his name is now. Pope Francis, right?
Yeah.
And behind him was the Vatican, and it was all white. Now in photography, before digital, when you wanted to do something, that was literally called whitewashing. If you wanted to say, get a Christmas picture and you take it in the back room and you do whitewashing to it, and then it will come out where the trees and everything were mostly white. So there's our new liberal Pope whitewashing the Vatican. It was right there on Time magazine.
Wow.
I just laughed when I saw that.
Wow.
So you mentioned propaganda, it just popped into my head. One picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
You know, I know we're coming up to our hour here. I want,
Okay.
there's one thing, Jim, that when I read your story that I still have a question of, and that is,
Sure.
okay, why didn't you name names?
Because I can't remember any of them. You mean the priests?
Yes.
I know their faces. I can't remember the names of any of them. I don't know. And the other kids, you know, it's funny. I don't really remember the faces of the kids because whenever we looked at each other, our faces were so distorted with
Uh,
fear and shame. You'd look up and you'd look right down again. I remember feet, looking down at little feet and butts of the other 6 kids. That's all, because you wouldn't look in each other's face. And the priests, I know the faces, but I don't know any of the names. I don't know how to find out either. I think partly I avoided it because it'd be too flashbacky for me to go back there and whatever I would have to do to find out the priest's name.
so, so there's ways to do that. And would you
Okay.
be opposed if Kate, Deb, and I try to do our best to try to track
Oh,
the potential names?
no, I would be so grateful. I'm grateful for all this because I'm so limited in what I'm able to do.
Well, and
You
you
know.
look, you've done so much heavy lifting that which always bothers me, you know, that the people that have to fight the fight are those who have been harmed the most. It just doesn't seem fair. There needs to be, you know, people who have strength to help and stand with you.
Oh man, I
But
appreciate that.
you
Yeah.
know, but anyway, Deb and I, we were talking about it. We like to go to the library and we know where we can find stuff. But what we would need from you are, you know, the church, the school, the
Right.
parishes, approximate dates. Like just
Right.
give us. Then we can go and we can use our resources to find and maybe come up with a list and maybe pictures. We'll look for pictures,
Right.
you know, and then see if, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how quickly we can do that, but would you be opposed if we did?
Oh, not at all. Well, the 2 nuns that got me when I was 3, between 3 and 5, I really don't know how we could find them. I mean, because one of them was wearing all this makeup and stuff. I don't have any context.
Yeah.
But the 2 priests, I mean, one of them was one of the main priests of the thing,
Yeah.
of the parish, and then another was this real tall guy that came and visited a lot. So I can describe the priests, I can give you the years and the parish and everything. And I can give you my oldest sister's phone number. You could maybe con her and say that you're trying to get information on this priest that everybody loved, and this is what he looked like. Do you remember his name? She might know it. Because she would know why I was looking for that name.
So she knows your story.
Yeah, she doesn't really believe. My siblings just kind of circled the wagons when I came out with all this stuff because they don't want to believe that. My mother spent half her adult life in Mercywood Mental Hospital being visited by the same priests that were raping her.
Oh my God.
And they just can't, they refuse to wrap their head around it. And of course they saw me, you know, from the time I was 3, I was so squirrely and so screwy. And I used to blame my mom for everything before I had my memories, because that was part of the ritual, set me up to do that.
Yeah.
So then I started going through my flashbacks and suddenly my story changed and I changed, and there's no way they were able to adjust to that. So
And where are you in rank order in your family? I'm curious because we're from big families.
2 older sisters and me, and then 1 sister and my brother who died. He's a junkie. He died of junkiness from the same problem I had. And then 3 other sisters below him.
Oh, wow. Big family.
7, yeah, good Catholic family, 7 kids.
Yeah.
But my oldest sister, Renee, may remember that priest's name, and I can describe him real easy. I mean, he was a short, stout little guy with black curly hair and a really thick Italian accent. And everybody loved him. I mean, he was just and he was one of them. And then the other real tall guy. It's so funny now, I'm remembering looking up at him, and when he had the mask on, I still knew it was him because his Adam's apple was flopping up and down when he was talking. That's when I was a little kid. You remember this weird stuff.
Sure.
But anyway.
Well, that's a little project, just a small one. If you could, you know, at least get through to Debbie. These are the parishes. This is the school. These are the approximate dates. There were any little detail, like there were 3 priests. One, like you said, he's Italian. I mean, anything that you can remember, tall, small, short, that would, you might help. And you know, maybe we can, you know, crank on that a little bit and see what we can come up with.
Right.
It might not take much. Snap has, Jim, they would collect these. I think Barbara would see them on eBay or something.
Right.
And big, thick Catholic directories. They're like big telephone books
Oh,
or
okay.
encyclopedias. And they would have one every year. They were like yearbooks. And it showed for the United States. So it showed every diocese who was now, I looked through
Wow.
some and there was some that, there was some blank. So it's, yeah, I don't know how, but you know what? The one thing the Catholic Church is good for, good or bad, is
Yeah.
record keeping.
Yes.
And like, so
Right.
when they say in a law school, in a lawsuit, we don't have the record, you know, they have everything on all
Right.
of it. So, so I think SNAP might be able to help us. They might have depends on what years. They don't have all the years, but they have a lot
Right.
of.
Well,
years.
Bishop's accountability too,
Yeah.
Kate. Bishops,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have them. So we could, you know, I'm just curious if anybody else, if we can figure out these names, some of the names, maybe we can see if anyone has come forward, you know, it's listed somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, that's all. Just, I mean, I just want to expose, I'm sure they're dead. I'm sure they're
Oh,
all
yeah.
dead. And
Right.
I hope the hell they're all burning, you know, and I mean, burning in hell, and better be, you know, this really, but.
If there's any justice, yeah.
I know, I have to vote. I have to have faith in something. But anyway, so yeah, I'd sure like to expose their names, and that would be the.
No, that would be great. I would appreciate that.
All right,
Probably
Oh,
get
you
drunk for
got
a
it.
week.
all right,
You're talking to Charlie's
One of them
Angels.
was Father Livius,
yeah,
but I'm not 100% sure. They always wore a mask.
right.
The only reason I know those two was because I could tell the one guy's build and the sound of his voice, even with a mask on. I knew who it was.
What was his name, Father? What?
Father Livius was another one that was probably in that mix, because he was he was just really satanic. I don't know what else to say. Even in the
Yeah.
school, he was like that.
Yeah.
But I can't identify him for sure, because
Okay.
if he was one of the ones wearing a mask, I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Well, you'll have to pull something little, you know, just don't spend a lot of time, but just what you can remember,
Oh, I'll
just
find it,
dates,
yeah.
locations, and that will help us as with a starting point. And we're sleuths. We'll put our heads together and come up with something.
All right.
So,
Thank you guys so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, we really appreciate. Any final thoughts tonight, Jim? And
I don't know. I hope I was didn't put anybody off too much.
absolutely not. Yeah.
you brought some clarity.
Oh,
I
that's
think
good.
you brought
That's
clarity.
good.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
knowledge. You always give me some
Yeah.
knowledge, Jim.
Right. Anybody out there watching this, if you want to be a hero, you got all kinds of chances to help some kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to identify with them. You can help them out.
Right. And also, do